address the biggest fallacy of all when it comes to the LCBO and other provincial liquor monopolies. And it's this: people go, it's such a cash cow for government. Now, I can tell you, back when I was freelancing, I believe it was the annual report for 2004, with a financial analyst, I sat down, and what we did, Andrew, that year is we removed the taxes collected by the LCBO, which the LCBO inexplicably categorizes as revenue. It turned out they actually lost $35 million, if memory serves, for that year. Can you imagine a government-run monopoly, liquor monopoly, actually losing millions of dollars? What I'm getting at, Andrew, is if you were to privatize the system like they did in Alberta back in the 90s, the government is still collecting the taxes, and that's their role, to regulate and tax, but not to warehouse and retail alcohol. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it's like the Ontario government losing money on online gambling. Like, it takes a special kind of success as a government to find a way to lose money at the realm where literally the slogan is that the house always wins. The house always wins unless it's the Ontario government running the only liquor retailer in town. How do you lose money on that? I think that, you know, it's fascinating to me. And I remember a few years back when Ontario switched to the HST, the liquor sales tax was, if I'm not mistaken, at 18.5% or 19%. It was in there. And when the HST went into effect, liquor got subsumed under it. So the tax went down to 13%. And that means that the price of alcohol at the LCBO should have dropped by 5-6%. But oddly, it didn't. The prices stayed exactly the same, even though the taxes went down by a considerable sum because the markup went up. And LCBO justified this by saying that it was so that people would drink responsibly, as in a good deal is antithetical to people not just going on a binge anytime they go there. And it strikes me that we're giving a lot of deference to this agency when we're not, as Ontario consumers or taxpayers, getting anything good for it.
No, that's a great observation. And I think, Andrew, a very significant point in history for the LCBO in the province of Ontario. We go back to 1995. Mike Harris running for premier. He won majority and then a second majority. And if you recall, my friend, one of the top 3 planks of Mike Harris's common sense revolution was to privatize the LCBO. And what you saw then under the stewardship of Andy Brandt, who used to be with the Progressive Conservative government, they started to spend money like drunken sailors. LCBO stores used to be very nondescript little buildings. Suddenly you got these Taj Mahal liquor temples. And I think, Andrew, the idea was to create a network of stranded assets, i.e., if the province ever went ahead with privatization, as a private enterprise, you couldn't viably operate some of these stores in a competitive system. It's too many millions of dollars invested in the store and the overhead. So it's almost as though the fix was in terms of, polluting the waters, forever allowing the province to go through a privatization. What would you say to that, sir?
I would agree. And I'd say the big elephant in the room there is staffing as well. No private operator would ever pay LCBO staff, who many of them are very kind, very capable, and very helpful, but no one would ever pay them $50,000, $60,000 a year to be cashiers. And I'm not denigrating that. It's a job and it's a good, honest job, but that is not what the market would bear under any other circumstances. So you're right that an investor would look at this and head for the hills, which is why the only demographic that is opposed to privatization seems to be big labor in government, I guess, but I'm going to view them as being one and the same right now. No one, this isn't even a left-right issue, liberal, conservative, because all of them can enjoy the splendor that is holding up a glass of sangria or having a martini or whatever. And it's baffling to me that no government, even the most bootstrappy, free marketeer conservative governments, will go near this.
It is incredible. And I think one of the reasons, Andrew, especially if you look at the Sunshine List, you see so many cronies making high six figures, working at the LCBO, working at the OLG. These are kind of like elephants' graveyards for loyal politicos to go to and get a nice, comfy job. But Andrew, what we have to address when you step back and you say, we compare, Canada to the United States, why do we have provincial liquor monopolies? Why do we have provincial lottery monopolies? And with both entities, it comes down to this, Andrew, as you well know, social responsibility. You see, if we were to allow potentially harmful products or money-draining products like lottery tickets, if we left that up to the private sector, well, the next thing you know, you have 15-year-olds drinking Colt 45 in the parking lot. All the private sector cares about is making money. We at government, you can trust us. And yet, from 10 years ago, Andrew, we did that experiment when I was at Sun News. We sent a 15-year-old clad in a burqa to buy hard liquor to 3 stores, no problem. And I'll give you a quick anecdote. In 1986, I'm 23. I was working in Alberta at the time, visiting Southern California, had a driver's license, had my ID, and I wanted to buy for my friend, for putting me up for a few days, a case of Budweiser. I went to 1, 2, 3, finally the 4th store before somebody would serve me. And it was explained to me, the guy would say, look, you have out-of-state ID, even out of country, so we're not really allowed to accept that. And I believe that you're 23, that you're legal to drink, but if you're not, and if this is part of a sting, I face a fine. I think the number was either $10,000 or $50,000. If it happens again, I lose my liquor license. Therefore, I lose my livelihood. So sorry for the margin I'm making on a case of beer. It's not worth it. So, Andrew, I'm telling you this story because that proves the private retailers are really working under social responsibility given the penalties. The 3 LCBO units that I went to with the 15-year-old, none of them were punished. Nobody was suspended. Nobody was fined. What do you make of this fallacy that the government is socially responsible?
Well, there was actually a study in Ontario, it would have been 12, 13 years ago now, where someone did organize that sting. And they went to variety stores to buy cigarettes, beer stores to buy beer, and LCBOs to buy some product from the LCBO. And they found that the highest performing, as far as asking for ID and refusing when ID wasn't available, was the group of variety stores they went to. The second highest performing was the beer store. The worst was the LCBO. And while individual LCBO employees may be reprimanded if they don't do the ID checks, for a convenience store, you're right, they could lose their entire license. And I've seen variety stores that have to hold up a very embarrassing sign on their door or on their rack for the cigarettes saying, we are not allowed to sell cigarettes for X number of weeks because we were caught selling to a minor. So there is a huge, huge, huge downside if one of those privately owned businesses runs afoul of a law, which, like it or not, is the law in place right now for purchasing certain substances. No one's going to shut an LCBO down. In fact, even when every other business in Ontario was shut down, the LCBO got to stay open.
What you just saw was an excerpt from my nightly show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every weekday, I do a monologue. Usually it's about half an hour. Then I interview an interesting guest, and then we read my hate mail or my fan mail, whichever is more fun. It's only available behind a paywall, though. That's how we pay our bills here at Rebel News. We don't take a dime from Justin Trudeau. But the good news is it's only $8 a month, about half the price of Netflix. And in addition to my nightly show, you also get weekly shows from 4 other friends here at Rebel News. So you're getting 36 shows a month just for $8. I think it's worth it. And even if you're not quite sure, do it anyways, because we rely on viewers like you to keep us free and independent. I promise you I'll never take a dime from Trudeau. Just go to rebelnewsplus.com and click subscribe. Thanks.